And then I saw the benefits in this very, let's say, utilitarian way of living, right? I want these benefits. It's they are selling it. I'll just grab it and go. But I found out such a new universe, not only in terms of meditation, but in terms of, myself.
Welcome
And
to Miraculous Transformations, conversations about powerful practices that create powerful transformations. Join me as I delve into stories of change and explore the tools and practices that have helped people navigate their paths. You might just find some you'd like to try yourself.
so I'll say I'm Blenda Batista. I'm currently an adjunct professor at Centenary University in the Masters of Happiness Studies with former Harvard professor Tal Ben-Shahar. I'm also a PhD student right now in the field of positive psychology and human ecology. I'm creating a teleworker well-being assessment. So my goal is to create this evaluation that we can take to companies and that will provide insights about teleworkers' well-being and how we can improve their health. And I'm also an educator with 14 years of international experience. I love what I do. And I think education, positive education, right? Teachers who are connected and mindful of their impact in the globe are going to make a difference. So it's really a pleasure for me to be here, Katie, with you. I really, appreciate your invitation. It's an honor for me to share a bit of what I know with you and your audience.
Well, and I appreciate your time. Are you ready to start our conversation officially?
Yes. Mm-hmm.
Okay.
Yes. Ready
All
and
right.
happy.
Okay. Well, I'm really excited to do this and to be speaking with you today. And so, the concept behind this, as I mentioned to you when we talked last time, is that I love to hear people's stories. I love to hear stories of transformation, people's just personal experiences and the things that they use to this day or the things that they used to help them get through situations, whether it was a hard time or a really amazing time, but just like practices that support that. And sometimes maybe even like practices that instigated the transformation.
Thank you so much, Katie, for the invitation. It's a pleasure and an honor for me to be here and to contribute to your project. Yes. Um, yes, I mean, like the when you prompted me last week or so, right, about which practices have been, transformative for me, I certainly remember the meditations, right, or the meditation course I did when I started like my full time as a teacher. Um, it was a very, like intense time, and I knew I needed to decompress so I could offer my students my best self, right? And one tool that helped me tremendously was this transcendental meditation course that I did, and I still practice to this day.
Cool.
And
Okay.
that brought many benefits.
So how did you, okay, so just to give a little background, so you're talking about when you were classroom teaching, right? Like when you were working at a school?
Yes.
Okay, so your background is in education. How did you decide on transcendental meditation?
Actually, I was looking for meditation. I always felt very, connected to meditation, even though I couldn't really do, and it was actually seen negatively in my family.
Oh,
Whenever I
really?
said, "Oh, I would like to meditate," I heard from, my parents that that was something for, people who it was very unfortunate and negative comments, right? Very poor judgments,
Okay.
very helpful practice, right? And also a philosophy of life, so to say. And then, so I always wanted, but it was prevented, right? And then I heard for many years I was trying a bit with Headspace and it wasn't really working for me. And then I heard of this course. There was this type of meditation that you do 20 minutes twice a day. And I was like, okay, that's exactly the time I have now, as a full-time teacher, and I also had my own company at that time. So it was
Oh,
really easily around 60 to 70 hours working each week,
wow.
right?
Okay.
Yes. So I definitely needed something to decompress to help, calm the mind. And then TM came right on time, and I remember reading the poster with the benefits, and I was like, okay, that's perfect. It fits well, like it fits my budget, it fits my time, and let's just do it. And I loved it.
So, what was your family's reaction to you starting to meditate? Have they softened to it over time?
After I told them after, right? And then they were like, oh yeah. This is, again, like with the negative comments. And I'm like, I'm already an adult. When I was younger and I wanted to engage in this, I had no support. So now I'm an adult. It's benefiting me. It's not illegal. It's not a drug. It's not anything bad.
Right.
So I'll keep doing it, because he was treated as he was something bad for you. It's incredible how parents' misconceptions can prevent you to flourish.
Yeah, that's so interesting. So, when you started meditating, when you started the practice initially, they had a poster of all the benefits. Like, what do you think for you were the biggest benefits that you noticed immediately?
And that's such an interesting question because I got into the field, right, because of the benefit and because of the stress I wasn't able to deal anymore, right? And then I saw the benefits in this very, let's say, utilitarian way of living, right?
Mm.
I want these benefits. It's they are selling it. I'll just grab it and go. But I found out such a new universe,
Mm.
not only in terms of meditation, but in terms of myself. And I definitely felt calmer. I could sleep better. At that time, I was taking homeopathic medicine to sleep. I was feeling very stressed at some point, like I couldn't even focus anymore because of I was teaching, I think, 7 different classes, which I
Oof,
loved, but seven,
a
different
lot.
classes. It
Yeah.
means, it takes a lot of your cognitive processing.
Mhm.
So I needed what I used to do was to meditate. Like I had many tasks. I'm like, I can't really focus. Then I used to meditate for 20 minutes. And then I would be able to do the tasks, which is something that people often say, oh my God, I don't have time to meditate. I just need to get things done. And I'm like, think of it as a gift for yourself,
Mm,
right?
yeah.
You're going to gain much more setting aside this time for yourself than just
Right.
like thinking you're gonna do this, drinking another cup of coffee and just downing it, like like the your to-do list.
Yeah. Well, when you come out of meditation and you go for a task, you're approaching it with more focus. Whereas like when you're continually, drinking the coffee, 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 which this isn't coffee, but it is cacao. When you're drinking that all the time, um, it's a different type of energy. It gives you, I guess I can't speak for everybody. For me, it makes me feel more scattered. I'm able to like move quickly when I have a lot of coffee and get a lot done, but the overall result is like less focus. I'm like more all over the place. And when I'm coming from a place of meditation, I'm like much more focused on the task at hand and much more thorough.
Yes. Katie, you said it all. Really, I really resonate with that. Yes, because as a highly sensitive person, I'm really sensitive to caffeine and also
Mm.
theine. So if I drink a bit, I usually my coffee, I literally drink this, like in a coffee mug,
Mm.
is less than a finger of coffee there, and it's enough for me. And sometimes I even have insomnia
Mm.
because
I
of
am the
this little
same
coffee I
way.
had. Yes, it's so, some people could have a whole, like mug 2 times a day and they're, like just making it through. But I perceive that I noticed that it really scatters my mind, especially coffee and sugar,
Yep,
right?
me
And
too.
then is diffused.
Yeah.
And then when I meditate, and I even have difficulties meditating after having coffee, or even
Yeah.
doing yoga after having coffee, because my mind then is all over the place and I need to focus and center. So, um, yeah, as you said, it's a very different a way of working.
So now, how many years ago was that you started your transcendental meditation practice?
2017 to end of 2016.
Okay.
So 8 years now.
And so now, like thinking back to those immediate benefits, do you feel like, um, what has unfolded since then? And do you still meditate twice a day? Because that is definitely a commitment. But it is, like you said, only 20 minutes at a time, which is like a digestible chunk. But like, how has it unfolded for you?
Mhm. Yes, I often reflect about it because it was so beneficial for me that I have lots of gratitude for finding this practice, and
Mm-hmm.
I'm glad I'm here, to share a bit of the benefits with you. And yes, it made me definitely a calmer person. I understand much better now, not only myself, and I know little about myself, right? I'm just getting to know, right? The more you meditate, the more you know. And you also, the more you know what you don't know, right? You're like, it's this
As you
endless
mentioned, it's a
circle.
new universe.
Yes. So you like is almost like opening the doors of your soul, of your mind every time you go there to meditate, right? And every time there is a new door, or sometimes you go to that door like, I don't want to look at this. So then treating yourself with compassion, with love, it really helps. It helps me to be more in terms of like profession with
Hmm.
my students. It really transformed it positively, and I'm really glad I did this, and I see the benefits, and I wish we had that as a training during our educator's license, right?
Me too.
Yeah, because
Mhm.
it's so helpful. We deal with so much during a classroom, day, like a normal day in a school, that we need that training for sure. And for example, with the students, I learned, like how to be present there with them. And sometimes, it's like Wednesday afternoon, there in Brazil is fully hot, like it's so intense. Kids just got back from their PE class. They are, like all over the place, and you're like, okay, how do I deal with this situation right now? I need to get, content going. So it helped me really connect with them, connect with myself, ground myself, and then lead the class with the grace. I think that's, the key.
Yeah,
Reading it,
that's
like treating
beautiful.
them kindly, treating myself kindly with grace, and like really creating this nurturing environment, this flow between all of us, and that we see each other. It's really bringing a more humanistic approach, I would say,
Mm,
as to the classroom. Because sometimes we have like, okay, we have 45 minutes time, this and that. I don't know nowadays if kids really need this, like they need care, they need attention, they need love. They are our seeds, and we are the water, we are the sun. So I think this is more my
yeah,
perspective.
that's all so beautifully said. I've heard people talk about this shift in education that, going from teaching content to teaching processes and ways to like all the content's out there now. It's all right on our phones, right on our computers. We can get most content that we want, but we have to we have to teach students how to do that, how to do it safely and all that type of stuff. But really, like all that time that we used to spend teaching content, some of that can be shifted to teaching like how to be in the world, like how to be in your body and how to be with other people and how to be in the world in a way that is, fulfilling and successful and joyful and all of those things. And so I love that, um, you know, I love hearing you talk about that. And I think that's an important shift. And hopefully that's happening more and more.
Yes, that's true. And now that you're talking about it, it made me consider this from another perspective, that this practice, um, mindfulness in general, whether it's formal or informal, is like a life enhancer for me
Uh,
now. Yeah, it is part of my philosophy of life and how I approach life, right? But then everything else got even better. Like, so all the other tools I've been learning, studying, like as teachers, as educators, we learn them, right? And then when we are going to apply, it adds, let's say, a tint, more color. It's more
yeah.
interesting. For example, now with the MA students, right? The masters that I got fortunate to assist now in Centenary University, the masters in happiness studies, right?
So
So whenever,
you're teaching that?
yeah, I'm a adjunct professor there.
Ah, cool. Okay.
So it's a wonderful experience. And whenever students email me, right? It could be like nice emails. It could be like emails like, okay, what about this grade, right? So
Mhm.
I choose to. So we know a few protocols of like nonviolent communication, and also the pause before you act or react, right? And then whenever I read the email, I really pause as a meditation practice and decide to connect. What is that student's need or
Mm,
needs and in that moment, right? What How can I really support this person right now? Because clearly they have something that they are voicing out and they need some support here. And then I really always get back to them with plenty of kindness, because I see myself as, like this person, as an educator that's bringing water and sun, right,
mm,
to this garden of the students. So um, then that helps the entire process to become more positive, and that they get what they want from that interaction, and that like we both have a harmonious interaction overall. So,
yeah,
yeah.
and I think it's really important to I love what you're saying because it's so important to acknowledge the value in that harmonious interaction. And I think energetically they can feel if you are rushed when you answer their questions or write them back, they might not be able to actually pinpoint what that is if they're not necessarily tuned into that or speaking in terms of energy and things like that. But but we can feel it when somebody's present with us or when somebody is in a hurry trying to, just get on to the next thing. And so I think like what a beautiful environment to set up for learning and for communication, and what great modeling that is. And that's what we do as teachers, right? Like we're modeling behavior. That's what people do as parents. That's what we do for, I think that that's what we all do all day, all the time for each other, is model behaviors and normalize behaviors. And so if we can normalize and model this idea of being more present with each other, and that like listening, like the deep listening skills, that's not necessarily it's not curriculum, but it's such an important part to allowing the students, it's a step to allowing the students to be open to whatever curriculum you're teaching them.
Mhm. That's so true. And the latest research on um, high performance leaders or leadership, right, says that the number one skill
Yeah.
by like successful and dear leaders is listening.
Yeah. All right.
Yes, is listening and caring for their employees. So, and it's also so different, Katie, when we are with people that are not meditators or like not in any bad sense, but that, or are just not there, right? You notice they are like jittery, they are like checking their phone, they're not there with you. And then it creates like, oh, okay, this uncomfortable feeling, right? Of like being there together. But when you're fully there, and we have this also in our field that our best gift is our attention to that person, to that moment,
Yeah.
right?
Yeah.
And we need it, and others need it too. So if we can offer that, and it costs nothing, it really doesn't cost a thing,
Yeah.
right? So
Yeah. Well, and going back to something you said before about mindfulness, whether it's formal or informal, I really, I like to think of or to realize that there's this umbrella, like mindfulness is this umbrella, and meditation actually, in my opinion, falls under the umbrella of mindfulness. It is a formal mindfulness practice, but then you can take pieces out of that meditation practice and practice them in small bits and throughout your day. And like you said, just the pausing or the listening, all of those things can be cultivated without a meditation practice. But if you cultivate a meditation practice, a lot of those things are a natural byproduct of that. It just starts to happen. It starts to flow out of you after a while. Like you just start to listen better and you start to become more responsive versus reactive, and just all of those things, more present. And to me, it's like a fast track to all of those qualities is by going ahead and doing the meditation practice.
yes, no, I totally agree with that. And also, going back to your question, if I practice it twice a day still, right? I'm not doing anymore twice a day due to the routines, right? But I try to do at least once a day,
Mm.
either in
Yeah.
the morning or the night. Sometimes I get to do the two times, but yes, then you become a bit more mindful, right? Following up with what you just said. I'll just give you an example. When I was, like with this hectic new life of teaching and everything with the company, I was like, okay, I need to learn a lot. So I was always like listening to a podcast while I was cooking, or also cleaning. I was putting like to read the articles, to like to do the masters and things like that at that time. So my mind was never at rest,
Mm.
never. And that has a price. That has definitely a cost, right? So then when I was going to bed, I still like very, I was feeling anxious and not settled, not even calm, right?
Yeah.
So I had to understand that we don't need to be, like adding things, to our minds, or like in this endless loop of input. That's what I see
Mm.
today with our kids. They are constantly on their phones, they are constantly listening to things. They never let their brains rest, and our brains need to rest, right?
Right.
So
Yeah.
uh, this was one practice that now I sometimes I just turn everything off and cook in silence, or have like meals in silence, or like be resting in silence, like to practice, like to settle the mind a bit.
Yeah. To practice presence. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. And I think that realization is so amazing too, because it's not sitting in formal meditation, but because of your formal meditation practice, you now value that stillness and you're able to sprinkle it into other parts of your life. I have this student that I work with that I've worked with him for a few years. He's in sixth grade, but he's very wise. And we know as teachers that no matter what age human you're teaching, you always learn from your students. And so he is like masterful at taking a practice, a mindfulness practice that I teach him, and applying it in a way that just works for him in his life. And he'll take the core concept of it and say, oh well, you know how you taught me that thing, well now I'm doing this, but it's connected to that thing. And so I feel like that's kind of what you were saying, like because of your meditation practice now, having the silence while you're cooking, or while you're it's not meditating, but it is stillness, and you're gaining so much benefit from just that feeling of like presence and rest, and you're able to recognize it because you've practiced it. I mean, it is just habit formation, right? You've practiced it.
Yes, and you touched upon something so important that I even forgot about. Like, like we get in the motions of life, but there is this meditation practice that we stop focusing on the mind, and then we focus in our heart. Sorry, like, so then really how we are feeling in this specific place at this specific moment, and then you start teaching your consciousness, your awareness, to stop judging or calculating or analyzing, and really just feel, right?
Mm,
Sometimes it's a good thing, because if you are with good friends in nature at the beach or something like this, you're going to enjoy. But if you are in a like business meeting, and things are not going so well, then it's a bit more difficult to connect with the feelings that arise.
mm.
But that's also a guideline, is a compass for us,
Oh
right?
yeah.
To guide us into good relationships, or to move away from not so interesting or not so fruitful relationships or places,
Yeah.
right? Also, that's really useful for kids too, like giving this tool for them at a young age to know, okay, how do I feel about this place, this person, this situation? Should I stay here or should I remove myself?
Oh yeah.
Just giving the kid this tool to analyze, it's great. So they can, like remove themselves from like a very difficult situation.
Totally. Yeah, just that, and teaching them to trust themselves. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, I remember when I taught first grade, I used to say, there was a lot of, there were years where there were kids that would have that repetitive friendship issue between them, and every day they'd come in from
Mhm.
recess and like, she did this and she did that. And this was before I started meditating, but I would say, okay, well, so this person has shown you repeatedly that this is how they're acting. And so you get to choose now. If you choose to continue playing with them, then you know that that's going to happen. And you may as well just be okay with it. Otherwise, you might want to choose something different. And so just like really empowering them with that feeling of you get to choose. You get to choose. And like now as I've become a mindfulness practitioner and gotten more into it, I've learned to put other language to it and teach it in different ways to kids and stuff. And but I think it's so valuable because I don't know that we were taught that when we were kids, or at least not explicitly.
Yes. No, and this is brilliant, really. And what we do also with our students, but in the case of being adults, we always say you always have a choice, no matter the situation you are in right now. If it's unfortunate or fortunate, you always have a choice. And apart from that, the choice also, you can always be kind, right? I
Mm,
can choose to exit the situation, but I can do it elegantly, gracefully, or in a kind way, right?
yeah,
Also understanding our interconnections, right?
yeah.
Because what am I creating is like being aware of how we are all interconnected, and what, like, the impacts of our actions. And out of all the things that we have nowadays, kindness is certainly one that we need more, I would say. So
Would you mind sharing a little bit about your positive psychology, like what you're studying and just, I feel like, am I correct that positive psychology is somewhat a newer field? And I don't know that everybody knows about positive psychology or what exactly it is. So would you mind sharing a little bit about that before we finish our conversation?
first of all, I wouldn't like to finish so we can continue, right? But I appreciate you asking. Yes, positive psychology is indeed a new field of inside psychology, right? And is like around 30 years old right now, so it's really a toddler.
Yeah.
Right? And is really focused on the science of flourishing, right? Every practice, strategy, everything related to how can we enhance the lives of people, and how can we support their adequate development in terms of like cognitive, mental, emotional health, right? So the goal is to gather all the practices that will really foster a happy, healthy, and fulfilling life. So this is it. Yeah.
That's really cool. I love that. Have you enjoyed studying? I mean, I guess that's a silly question. I mean, it's the science of happiness. So if you're not enjoying it, then something's off.
I wow, it's really, Katie's. It is what makes my heart sing. Really,
Yeah.
I love studying it. I love sharing the practices, and finding new tools, and helping people implement those tools to live better, right? And it's so incredible. Like we see, like students applying to themselves, and then they start to transform, and then their relationships start to transform, and like it's like it comes in waves of positivity, let's say, right? And yeah, it's my professor, Professor Tal Ben Shahar, he created the certificate and then the masters on the
Oh,
same field,
cool.
right? And then it was really truly transformational education. Now it's really, in vogue, for all of us educators, and it really transforms um, people's lives. So yeah, I'm very fortunate to have found this field. I love it, and yes, would love to share more with you.
Do you ever run into people kind of resisting because they're saying like, oh, you're always like, I guess interpreting it as like you're always unhappy with something, and so you're looking for ways to be happy, as opposed to I'm happy, here's my baseline, and I'm just looking for ways to be more happy. Like, I think there's a sometimes can be a misconception. Have you run into people like expressing that or resisting in that way?
Yes, that's a very important question, actually. Um, it's very interesting because I would say I have half-half whenever I share like that I study the science of happiness. Half of the people say, "Oh, amazing! Tell me more," and half say, "Oh, really? Tell me, like you study happiness. Why should we even, consider this?" And people ask me to convince them why we actually should contemplate such a field,
Hmm.
or they're very resistant and saying, "Oh, it's not even. This is a joke. This is not even a." So yeah, it's okay. Each person, has their own conceptions, and sorry, my English is like faulty now, but yeah, each person, will follow their own path, and yeah, so
Well, so
it's
it's funny that you say that because tell me if you agree with this, but I feel that the reason you're able to have that perspective is probably because of your foundation in your mind, in your meditation practice, is that you're able to allow everybody to have their own path, and it's okay if they don't think that what I'm doing is valid. I know it's valid, and there's just for me there's some sort of like release of control that's happened over time as I've meditated longer. Like everyone doesn't have to see things the way that I see them, and it doesn't mean they're wrong. It just means that we're all in different places. And so even the way you responded to that, I feel like is a result of potentially your study of the science and your meditation practice.
yes, exactly. It's acceptance, right? And yes, sometimes we can change a bit around us, sometimes we cannot, and then we deal with that in the best way possible, and that's okay too, right? For sure. Yeah, I'm thinking a bit like how it can be challenging sometimes, right? But we do, for those who are seeking, right, some support, and then if we can help one person at a time, and that, like that person who is seeking gets the support that he or she needs, then
Mhm.
that's already working. So,
Yeah, I agree.
yeah.
So I'm really grateful to have had this conversation. And do you have anything else you want to add or share?
That's interesting. Yes, now that you are connecting with positive psychology,
Yeah.
I just wanted to share that in the master's program, one of the fundamentals is mindfulness. Just
Okay.
to share with you how important your work is
Mm,
one of the pillars of the entire framework when we are teaching happiness. And we have students practicing meditation every single day, different types, so many different types. And not only, okay, guided meditations, we go through breath work. So it's all types of like mindfulness techniques, right? Then um, walking mindfully, then loving
mm,
kindness meditation, then body
I like
scan, then yes, like all different types, so they can find the practice that resonates with them, right? Some people are doing more yoga, more tai chi, or qigong.
that. Mm,
It's completely different. So we introduce them to all of the types, and then they get to choose. Like it's like their menu, their meditation menu, let's say.
I love that. Yeah,
Yes,
I
and
once, oh, go ahead.
no, no, you can go.
And I was just gonna say, I once looked into a program to teach mindfulness in the classroom before I did my meditation teacher training, and they had this like one way that they wanted everybody to do it, and I was like, that doesn't sound right. Like as teachers, when we teach math, we teach lots of strategies, and then the kids pick a strategy. So I went with a teacher who taught all different types of meditation and how to teach all different types of meditation so that we could choose and so that our students could choose. So I really resonate with that.
Yes, no, that's fundamental. And even when I was trying meditation practices with my students for my master's, right? And I was carefully selecting different types for like girls and for boys. Usually, at least in my experience, boys were more into like, let's do some more active type of practice. And the girls were like, no, I'm okay just sitting here, or maybe I would do some painting, like just so it was really catering for them. Because if you introduce something, only one, and they don't really resonate, maybe one out of the 20, then it's a lost battle. So you really need to cater for all of them. And there are many practices, not only like the meditation, for example, but in the masters, right? We also focus a lot on gratitude. And it's not only writing, right? We do like gratitude meditation, but like not only writing, yes, I'm grateful for this, and that. No, we really ask them to um, live again that moment, right? Like
Oh.
feel the feeling, savor it. We also have just one practice that's called savoring. It's really
Mm.
going back to that beautiful moment, right? Or when you are, having a nice dinner, let's say. This is another type. So we try to infuse in the curriculum different types of mindfulness, formal and informal, so students are more present. Also with the journaling, right? Being present there with your feelings. Sometimes they are pleasant, sometimes they are not, but be there present. Look at it with compassion. Treat yourself kindly and then move forward. So these are some of the practices that we embedded there.
So this reminds me of David and I, we talk about this stuff all the time because he's got a podcast and he talks about human evolution and stuff like that. And so I might get the person wrong, but I think it's right. So there's this man named Ken Wilber. Are you familiar with Ken Wilber's work? I can't remember like
Not
what
yet.
I don't remember like what his books are. I've listened to some of his stuff with David, but what he has done is he's taken all of these wisdom contexts from history and he's pulled out the similarities and like boiled it down to where they overlap and like share that these are the commonalities between them, and that kind of sounds like what positive psychology is like finding all of these different tools and practices and like where do they overlap and which ones are most effective, and like here they all are. That's it, just kind of reminded me of that.
Exactly. No, you got it. It's exactly like that. We gather things from across the globe, like practices, concepts. So from meditation, um, like yoga, tai chi, qigong, then concepts from South Africa, Ubuntu, right? Which is this concept of we are all interconnected, right? And it's also everything tested, it's evidence based. So whenever we are creating interventions, strategies, we are testing it and then saying, okay, now you can use it, right? So it is a science. Um, so
Can I ask, how did you find your professor in your program?
yes, so a few years ago, I remember watching on the TV, on the news, that there was like Harvard had this happiness class, and it was
Mm,
the most popular class of all times and things like that. So I'm like, oh my God, I always wanted to study psychology. And, but the thing is that psychology usually studies already when the person has, like has some issues. And that was the argument of Martin Seligman, the professor who created the positive psychology. He said, I want to study how to prevent that, first of all,
yeah,
and what makes people flourish, like people be happy. So then this is the goal of this field of study. So then he created this field, positive psychology, and then Professor Tal Ben Shah was the one teaching it at Harvard. And then he left Harvard, and I was researching again, for like psychology courses and a new masters. And then I found that he created a certificate, and it wasn't under Harvard anymore. I was like, oh my God, now is my chance, And then I took the course, and now he has a master's and he's working on a doctorate on the same field. So,
very cool. Very cool. All right, Blenda. Well, thank you, thank you, thank you for talking to me about all this.